What would you do if you came home to a couple of terrified children and a creature scratching at your door? A creature that looked like this.
During the 1970s, a small town known as Enfield, Illinois, was being plagued with sightings of something that nobody has ever seen before. This creature doesn't seem to have any roots within Native American folklore and doesn't even have a name for what it is. This creature has only ever been referred to as the Enfield Horror or the Enfield Monster. What this thing was, I honestly have no idea. I wish that I could tell you something, but it even has me completely stumped. So as we go over the accounts of this creature, I want you to take in as much information as possible and let me know down in the comments what you believe this Enfield Horror to have been.
Henry was a father of 2 and was coming home late at night. It was 9:30 when he walked inside and saw his boys in a huge panic. When he asked them what was wrong and why they were so upset and up past their bedtime, all they could say was that there was something outside scratching at the door. It tried to get inside through the front door and realized that wasn't going to happen. So then it tried to pull out the window air conditioning unit in an attempt to find its way into the home. This was exactly when their father had gotten home. So while Henry was walking up to the front door, he was most likely outside with this creature skulking about his home. But despite his kids' genuine fear and concern, he attempted to calm them and explain that it was probably just a dog or a cat scratching at the door. That's when it happened again. The scratching came back, and this time it was at the front door once again. The kids were terrified, but Henry wasn't concerned at all. So he walks to the door and opens it, expecting to see a dog or something at least explainable. But instead, this is what he described him seeing. It had 3 legs on it, a short body, 2 little short arms, and 2 pink eyes as big as flashlights. It stood 4.5 feet tall and was grayish colored. It was trying to get into the house. So he does the sensible thing and he goes to grab his .22 pistol and a flashlight. When he opened the door again, he immediately took aim and shot the creature at least once for sure. It hissed and sounded a lot like a wildcat, but shortly after it began jumping away and covered about 50 feet in 3 jumps. Afterwards, he called the cops, and all there was as proof of this odd creature was scratches at the door and prints that were similar to a dog's, but with what looked like it had an extra imprint. When you look at the bottom of a dog's foot, it has 4 toe pads and 1 in the center. But this creature left 6 indentations, something that's incredibly uncommon. All of this was incredibly odd, but what's worse is the report the police had just received 30 minutes earlier.
So before we get into the story of this young boy that was attacked, I just want to add that there are some conflicting reports about this. Some say that this boy came forward saying that he was lying and that this story came out after Henry had filed his report, as a way for the kid to joke and tease Henry. That being said, here's the story for you to decide. 30 minutes before Henry had called the police and reported this strange creature scratching at his door and trying to get in at his young kids, a young boy had been attacked just before this creature had come after them.
He said that the creature ripped up the child's clothes and that it had long talons on its feet with claws on its arms. The talons were clawing at this child and completely shredded his shoes. However, when the police were investigating this, they didn't find any evidence whatsoever. Aside from the shredded shoes and torn clothing, there wasn't any footprints or anything. It's hard to say if this boy was lying or telling the truth, but I'll leave that for you to decide. However, when it comes to Henry, he would still come to have one more encounter with this little creature. In the dark of the night on May 6th, Henry was awoken by the commotion coming from the neighbor's dog. He checked the time and it was about 3 a.m. So he gets up and he goes outside to investigate it. As he walks outside, he wanders around a bit until he comes to these train tracks, and on the tracks, he sees the same creature wandering around. He watched it for about 5 or 10 minutes until it eventually jumped away in a similar fashion to what it did the first time he encountered it. This time, he had said this: "I saw something moving out on the railroad track, and there it stood. It wasn't in a hurry or nothing." It was shortly after this that the name Enfield Horror would have gotten around and became synonymous with this unusual three-legged creature. This title, the Enfield Horror, caused a lot of intrusive visitors to come to town, at which point the sheriff suggested to Henry that he should probably just keep his mouth shut. Basically, stay quiet or I'm gonna throw you in jail. Among these visitors were several monster hunters and just some regular people looking for a good time hunting something that had never been seen before. A couple of them had been locked up because they were shooting at what they called a gray thing that was running through the woods.
Another couple of guys both swore that they saw a gray monkey moving through the brush. Eventually, these folks would leave and be released and go home. But even afterwards, there were 4 other people that had encounters with the Enfield Horror. A director of a radio station had gone out searching for this creature and was said to have gotten a recording of the shrieking this creature made, but that's never been brought to light.
And nobody's seen this creature since. But if you look into the past, there's a little town just 40 miles away from Enfield that had its own encounter with a creature that's not too dissimilar from what we're talking about. This creature was more likened to a devil monkey than what the Enfield Horror looks like, but it did seem to act in a similar way. It would jump away with giant leaps. Perhaps this was a mistaken identity of a devil monkey or something all its own. As far as I can tell in Native American folklore, there's nothing that talks about this kind of creature, but that doesn't mean that it's not out there. There's still mysteries in the world, and where mystery lies, adventure awaits.
If you like what I do and want to help support me, then the best way to do that is by joining the community on Patreon. I post when I can, and it goes a long way in supporting the channel. But if you're not into that, then just check out this video YouTube seems to think you'll love, and I'll see you there.